Greetings and welcome to Let's Talk About Books, baby, where we talk with your favorite LGBTQ plus authors. I'm Anita Kelly, and my guest today is author Wayne Scott. Hi, Wayne.
Hey, Anita. Thanks for having me on the show.
Sure. Thanks for being here. How's it going?
It is going awesome. I've been looking forward to this.
Oh, good. I know. I've been eager to talk to you. And I want to talk about your recently published memoir that is called The Maps They Gave Us, One Marriage Reimagined. So first, when was this published?
This came out earlier this year. It came out in February.
Okay, so it's pretty new.
Pretty new still.
And tell us about this. What inspired you to write a memoir, and what's it all about?
Yeah, I think the easiest way to start is to say where the title came from, because it's a link to our history as LGBTQ folks. There was a series of gorgeous love poems that the poet Adrienne Rich wrote when she was first starting out with her lifelong partner Michelle Cliff, called the 21 Love Poems. And in one of the poems, she's got this line: "Whatever we do together is pure invention. The maps they gave us were out of date by years." And I took inspiration from these poems because they were about what it's like to create a relationship in a world that's hostile to the kind of love you and your partner have. Mm-hmm. She was talking about it as it applied to lesbians in the 70s and 80s, a very different time.
Yeah, definitely.
She very much was the poems themselves are kind of maps in a way.
Mm-hmm.
They are maps for future generations. That's kind of how I use them. My spouse and I, my partner, who's like the other main character in the memoir, she and I met through a common love of Adrienne Rich's poetry. I found out that she was a fan. Our early conversations were about Adrienne Rich's poetry and essays, and that was how we got together. It's actually a big part of the memoir are the voices of our LGBTQ ancestors. Mm-hmm. Whether it's Adrienne Rich or Audre Lorde or James Baldwin, or E.M. Forster, D.H. Lawrence, Oscar Wilde, all of them. They all kind of show up as these spiritual friends on the journey, as my wife and I are trying to figure out what we're going to do with our very unique kind of relationship.
And what makes your relationship unique?
That's a good question. Well, so if a psychologist would look at us and say that we have what's called a mixed orientation relationship, which means that she is straight and I am not. I identify as queer or bisexual, and we've always known this about us, right? That was actually part of what kind of drew us to each other. She was a very strong feminist, and I was this kind of queer guy who had a different way of moving in the world as a man, and that was kind of interesting and appealing to her. And so we had a successful relationship, had been together 5 years, and then decided that we wanted to get married, for reasons that are outlined in the book, right? But once you sort of start to go down that path of getting formally married, getting kids, buying the house, all that kind of stuff, you find yourself occupying this kind of heteronormative container, that kind of lops off your sense of who you are, a connection to your history. And even though when we got together, I knew very clearly who I was, over the course of the years, have been taking vows to be monogamous, to only be with a woman, I kind of forgot who I was. I kind of lost track of that part of myself. Mm-hmm. And that's not a good situation for anybody to be in. And so about 15 years in, with school age children, I kind of had a crisis, sort of an existential crisis, and realized I missed my connection to queer community. I missed my connection to queer men. And that I couldn't just lop off a part of myself. in service of the container that we found ourselves in. But the problem was, I still loved her. Like, so I was trying to figure out, like, what do you do when you love someone very deeply and you want to be with them forever, but your desire goes in other directions.
That must have been
doesn't go just towards them.
That must have been a difficult conversation to have.
Wow, yeah, difficult series of conversations, and really kind of a crisis. For most of the memoir, the two characters, I'm going to talk about them in the third person because that's what we do in writers' critique groups, just to, but for most of the memoir, the two characters think they're getting divorced. Okay. And they go to see a professional who's both a divorce mediator and also a couples counselor, and who also identifies as queer. And at a certain point in their work together, this divorce mediator / couples counselor, they never really clarify what they're doing with her. They never 100% clarify it. She looks at the couple and she says, listen, I know you guys came to me for a divorce, but you actually seem like you're pretty committed and devoted to each other and that you want to work on healing. Have you ever considered having an open marriage? And this would have been in like 2008. And so it was kind of shocking to us that she could even suggest such a thing. I really did think it was kind of against the rules for a therapist to bring up that idea, but she just brought it up as a question. We both were kind of shocked, and we wandered out of the session, and we were kind of in this like, this space of shock and disbelief for a while. But then we started to talk about it. If we were going to get divorced anyway, could we try this out as an experiment, and see if we could make it work? Because we knew we liked we knew we enjoyed each other still. We still loved each other. We enjoyed raising our kids together. Our kids were very young at this point. They were school-aged kids. Okay. And so, so we started we started down this path very much as a experiment.
And who decided, how did you decide who you were going to bring into the relationship?
Well, we basically decided that each of us had permission to explore romantic partnerships outside our marriage.
Okay.
And so we developed agreements about how we could do that, but also safeguard our relationship and our family. Because when you just make a decision to have relationships outside of your marriage, you're introducing some uncertainty and risk into the arrangement, right? And so you got to figure out, like, what do we need to do to make this feel safe, so that we, and so we had a number of kind of agreements about how we could do it. Some of it is like, I think with a lot of couples who do this, there's you figure it out through trial and error. We'd have some rules that we would try out, and we're like, no, that's not us, that's not going to work. And then we would revise it and update it until we got to a place where we could we found a way of balancing outside relationships with placing a premium on the family we were raising.
Okay. Hard to do.
Yeah, no, it was super messy. And in fact, I think the reason the memoir even exists, right, is because as we were going down this very unconventional path, trying to figure things out through trial and error, we would have these weird, interesting experiences. And because I was a writer, one of the ways I would make sense of them, integrate what had just happened to us, is I would write an essay. And so over time, I found that this is actually right at the beginning of the pandemic, I sort of looked at a body of work and I realized, I've written a lot of essays about non-monogamy, the experience of non-monogamy, really at the ground level, what it's like, to do some of these different things. And I looked at it, I was like, if I built some bridges between these essays and I lay them out chronologically, I've got a memoir about marriage, about a different kind of a marriage. And the other thing that was really striking when I laid them all out and looked at all of them is, you start to see some through line and some themes that are common to all of them. And one of them was that in order to do this difficult thing together, this challenging thing together, we we were really devoted to each other.
Mm-hmm.
Like I realized, oh, this is really kind of weird. This kind of, even though this is about two characters who most of the time, most of the book think they're getting divorced,
Mm-hmm.
they actually are falling in love again.
Wow. Wow. That's unique. It really is, right? That doesn't happen that often. Uh, um,
It's definitely not the usual story people are given. Usually if you have a marriage that doesn't look like, either we have very narrow definitions about what a successful marriage is supposed to look like.
sure.
I would say culturally, and
Mm-hmm.
we have also a very low tolerance if marriages look like they're not working out.
Mm-hmm.
We want people to get divorced.
Mm-hmm.
There's not a lot of recognition that there's a vast continuum between those two things. That there's lots of creative adaptations people can make. Now, I'm not even talking just non-monogamy. There's lots of things people can do as to adapt and evolve over time,
Mm-hmm.
in response to their changing needs, changing bodies, things like that.
Yeah, just different ways.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
so how did your wife like react like when you brought this to her? Um, was she on board? Was she
Are you talking about the non-monogamy or the memoir?
the not well? Let's go with the non-monogamy first. Was she like, I don't know about this, or was she like, yeah, I'm on board. I love you. I'm on
No,
board.
no, it wasn't. Well, I wish it had been that easy. No, it wasn't that easy. We were both ambivalent, and we were both afraid. We didn't have any role models
Oh.
that not any that were close by. I mean, they're the ones you read about.
Mm-hmm.
Like you can read about the Bloomsbury writers and all the different kind of romantic and sexual entanglements that they had and tried to figure out. But we didn't have any that were up close role models that showed that something like this could work.
Yeah, it's
Right.
it's
And actually,
hard enough
if
to
anything,
have good role models for a traditional relationship, right?
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. I mean, if anything, one of the things we found out is as people figured out that we were doing this, couples that we knew started to come out to us as couples who were also in non-monogamous arrangements. They just weren't out.
And you had no
They
idea.
weren't. No, we had no idea. And so I realized a lot of people are actually doing this. A lot of people are striking these kind of deals as a way of being able to make their long-term relationships work, but there's just not a lot of openness about it.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was actually one of the things that, other than that I also thought it was just kind of an interesting story. One thing that motivated me to write the memoir was that I just thought that there aren't enough stories like this out there, where we can see that people can go through really, really hard times, and really hard periods of sorting and discerning and rebecoming, and that it's okay at the other end. It just looks really different than what they imagined they were going to be in.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And then what did your wife say when you came to her and said, "Hey, I want to write this memoir about our
Well,
relationship"?
I mean, yeah, I think there was a really deep sigh. I think she's used to being married to a writer,
Mm-hmm.
and she's used to being married to a writer who writes in a very personal voice about personal experiences. And it's not the first time she's been a character. Obviously, some of the chapters of the memoir had appeared in journals over time, and so she read them, and so she knew piece by piece. She knew kind of what I was trying to do, in carving out this space for the story of this arrangement.
Mm-hmm.
So I think she was, reluctant. You're always worried about how will people see me, how will this change how they feel about me and stuff like that. But I think ultimately she also felt like it was a story worth telling.
Oh, that's nice. That's great. And like, were the dynamics different then? Like once you changed your relationship dynamics, were how did life change for you, or did it?
Well, it definitely changed because there were other people in our lives,
Okay.
right? And it definitely changed because, our children were more aware that they had parents in an unconventional arrangement. They were more aware that they had a queer father. They were more aware that their mother was very open-minded, and creative in terms of how she thought about what partnership and marriage can look like.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
So were they asking a lot of questions at first? or did
Not
you,
really.
okay.
Surprisingly not. I wish the interesting thing, people often ask me, well, what about the children? What was the impact on the children? But they actually didn't really seem to notice very much. I mean, we
Mhm.
had several kind of sit down conversations with them where we carefully told them what we were doing in words appropriate to their development.
Mhm.
But at the end of the day, they weren't particularly interested. Children really aren't interested in their parents' sexual romantic
Mhm.
lives.
Mhm.
You know, they knew that we had a close family. We did things together. We got them to their various events and activities in school. Their needs were met.
Mhm.
And so it wasn't really that. It was something that was sort of abstract, I think, to them.
Yeah.
Not
Yeah.
something they really felt like they had to think about a lot.
Right. It wasn't going to impact their day-to-day life, so they were like, "Hey, this whatever, dad, whatever, mom."
Yeah.
You know.
Well, kind of. It's interesting because since the memoir has come out, I've met lots of couples and people in different lots of different creative relationship configurations, and some people have much more blended kind of arrangements where maybe additional partners live under the same roof.
Mhm.
And there's so many creative ways that people can do this. We probably did it in a much more conservative way in terms of, like, to look at us, you would just see two parents with three kids living under the same roof. It still looks pretty conventional,
Mhm. Yeah.
other than the dad is writing all these essays about non-monogamy.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, we were very protective of our family while we were going down this path.
So, as you would bring new people to the relationship, did the kids meet them, or was that off limits?
Sometimes, but not in a huge way. I mean, I think in the memoir, the biggest thing that happens is that both partners, both my wife and myself, we meet the people that each other are going out with.
Okay.
And that's like a big move towards integration. So I mean, again, we did it in a pretty very 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 careful, maybe overly careful way. But we both made an effort to meet the person, and be friendly with the person that the other person was going out with.
Yeah.
And it also kind of reduces the sense of threat, right? It's
Oh,
better.
yeah.
It's easier if you have a good feeling about that person, to trust that, okay, things are going to be okay.
Yeah.
Like when I met her, I met her boyfriend on several different occasions. They're documented in the memoir. And the odd thing about meeting him was that it ended up her friendship with him ended up being not just good for her, but also good for me in a lot of ways.
How so?
Um, he was just a mensch. He's just a really nice guy. He had been in non-monogamous arrangements for much longer than we had. And he had a lot of wisdom about how to make it work.
Wow.
And he had a lot of ideas about how to make it less threatening for the person in my position, the guy. And so, like, he actually not infrequently sent home small gifts for me. Clothing, theater tickets, things like that, which is very weird because there was a part of me that's like, wait a minute, like in a more traditional heteronormative way, a guy like this would be my rival and I would
Yeah.
not like him, and yet
Yeah.
he is being kind to me,
Yeah.
and also giving me all these kind of cool clothes that don't fit him anymore.
Like wooing
So,
you.
yeah, in a way, maybe, just wanting to make sure that I felt okay about him.
Yeah. Yeah. That's wild. And that was
Yeah.
really insightful of him to do that too, right? Otherwise, I think the dynamics would have been different. I can't imagine how difficult that would be to meet, the other partner of someone that you love.
Yeah, your wife's lover,
When you've
basically.
never shared her with anyone.
Right. Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
No. So it was. But it's weird because we don't have that. We don't get any societal template that says how these things are supposed to look. But I mean, it's actually remarkable how, he was just a nice guy. She had good taste in guys. She was going out with an interesting guy who had lots of interests that were similar to mine, and there was no reason to be threatened by him. He also did not want to be in a, he wasn't trying to, he didn't want to be married. You know, he didn't want to be, take her away from me or anything like that. One of the first things he communicated to me when we met was, I respect your arrangement. I'm not going to do anything to interfere with that. But, you know, I enjoy having somebody to go out with and to do cultural events with and stuff like that.
So
I myself don't want to be married, he said.
So you said he was experienced in a non-monogamous relationship.
Yeah, you know, I live in Portland, Oregon, and Portland, Oregon has a fairly progressive social vibe. And so, you know, once you let people know that you're in a non-monogamous arrangement, you find your people. They're here. Okay. They're out there.
Okay.
And so he's in that community, the poly community in Portland.
That's what I was wondering, if there was a community available to you, and you had people to talk to and get advice from, and were they there for you?
Yeah, no. Once you are sort of, enough people know, then it's easy to kind of meet the other families that are doing similar things. You know, who also have lessons learned that they can share. And also single people who, for various reasons, don't want to be in long-term partnerships, but they want to have companionship.
Mm-hmm. And was there a difference, like, between, let's say, female partners in the relationship, or male partners? Did you have male partners only, or female partners as well?
Yeah, no, I only had male partners. Okay. I only had in the book, we both each only have one other partner.
Oh, okay.
But in the book, the first sort of significant relationship that I had after we decided to be non-monogamous was with another man who was also a dad of 2 kids the same age as my kids, who was also in a heterosexual marriage, where they were talking about opening it up. Right. So it was a very parallel situation. Yeah. So, like, neither of us was going to end our marriage. We were both very committed to our marriages. And so, and we eventually all met each other. I met his wife, he met mine. But it was, in some ways, it was weird. It was weird to have such parallel situations, you know?
Yeah, but it was probably super helpful, because you had that almost safety net, knowing that, you weren't leaving your spouses.
Yep. And also just the fact that we both had children really helped, because we understood, with being a parent, you can really only go out with other parents in some ways, because people who don't have kids don't understand just the shit that happens with kids. Just the emergencies, the disruptions of your plans, the ways that time can sometimes get hijacked by things that come up with your kids.
Yeah, your life's not your own sometimes.
It's not your own anymore, and sometimes it's hard if you're dating child-free people. I have all admiration in the world for child-free people, but they just don't have a frame of reference for understanding just how many things can sabotage your best laid plans.
Yeah.
When you have kids.
Yeah, that's true. That's very true.
Yeah.
So, we talked about, like, the differences, and it almost sounds like there really weren't a great degree of differences between the dynamics in like your relationship with this man and the relationship with your spouse. You both loved each other, cared about each other. Was it difficult to, like, juggle all of that and meet the needs of everyone?
Yeah, I think in the same way that it is for all parents of little kids, which is that there's limited time for the parents to take care of themselves individually, to see their own friends. So really, at the end of the day, it ended up working out that we each got 1 and maybe 2 nights out a week, but usually more like 1 night out a week. Because that's actually, if you look at other families with little kids, that's kind of what it looks like when they get when the mom or the dad gets together with their friends.
Yeah,
like there's just not a lot of time for your own life, because kids keep us so busy.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Um, so were there differences then between how, um, like your wife and her other partner, um, I don't know, kind of interacted, between and differences between how you and your, male partner interacted?
Um, Not really, other than, we had different interests.
Okay.
Like, so I think that she and her the man that she was dating tended to do, well, I guess we all were doing outdoorsy stuff, hiking, but like, for example, the guy I was seeing, he and I were both runners,
Okay.
so a lot of what we did was running,
Mm-hmm.
running and working out, and just doing things she wouldn't have been interested in anyway. So
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
she and her, the guy that she went out with, tended to do more cultural events,
Okay.
theater, readings, restaurants, stuff like that.
Okay. And sex was on the table. Like it.
Um, I mean, that's a metaphor. It's an interesting metaphor. It wasn't ever. I don't think it was ever on the table, but yeah, no, we were romantically. We were allowed to have physical involvements with the people we were seeing.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Okay. And do you think that impacted your relationship with your wife at all?
It was awkward. It was odd. It was something that took some time to get used to.
Yeah.
Um, we if you go down this path, you kind of have to remind each other how much you love each other more explicitly and more frequently.
I bet. Yeah. Yep.
You have to remind each other how special and important you are to each other, even though you're also having this other kind of relationship.
Yeah.
Um, so in some ways, actually, there can be a lot of ways in which it fortifies for lack of a better word, the main relationship.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah.
And so since you, kind of initiated this kind of relationship, um, do you, do you think that your wife was satisfied with this, or just was trying it out, or enjoyed it?
Yeah.
How was she with that?
Well, I think, if I so the memoir, the story that's in the memoir is
Mm-hmm.
just, covers like a 2.5 year period around 2007, 2008,
Okay.
right? And that's the very messy period of transition
Okay.
from monogamous to non-monogamous. And to be honest, we're at the end of the memoir, not to give away too many spoilers,
Yeah.
but there's still some ambivalence on her part, largely just because it's unconventional. We don't look like other marriages.
Mm-hmm.
There's judgment in the world, which
Sure.
that's uncomfortable,
Oh,
right?
sure.
And I think I would actually say in some ways, I think there's more judgment
Mm-hmm.
against women,
Oh yeah.
in
There
these
always
arrangements.
is.
Yeah, there always is, right? So I mean, so yeah, so understandably, I think she still had some ambivalence about the arrangement, but she didn't have any ambivalence about me.
Okay.
Like she,
You knew that.
we
You sound
we
pretty
and yeah, we
pretty
both we
solid.
both
Yeah.
yeah, no, we both, I think, it's very hard sometimes to see each other clearly when you're measuring yourselves up against this cultural ideal, which is the ideal marriage.
Yeah.
Like you can really only, it's kind of a disservice we do to each other, where we try to think, does this person measure up to is this person the ideal husband or not? I mean, nobody's the ideal husband.
Yeah.
We're all just kind of these like humans mucking about in the world trying to figure things out.
Sure.
But over the period of this time, when we were transitioning to non-monogamy, we worked really hard on ourselves. We stayed in communication with each other. We stayed in counseling for the whole time. That the counselor, the therapist that we were seeing, that is a big character in the memoir, a very big part of the memoir.
Okay.
In fact, since the memoir's come out, I've gotten so many emails and questions from people like, who was this magical therapist, and is she still is she open to taking new clients?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, that's unusual, really. To even have a therapist, make that suggestion.
I think I think in 2007, 2008, it was still kind of a kind of a radical new thing. But I think increasingly, at least in this part of the country, I may have a bias or a nearsightedness because of the part of the country I live in, which is pretty socially progressive. I don't think it's uncommon that therapists, at least ask. It's at least a question worth asking.
Mm-hmm.
If people say they have some kind of fundamental incompatibility, what are all the creative ways you might potentially adapt other than divorcing? And divorcing is also an option, and it shouldn't be a stigmatized option,
Mm-hmm.
but there may also be some creative room in the middle as well.
Mm-hmm. So, I have to ask you, is there a happy ending?
In the memoir, I think the memoir ends very happily.
Okay.
My but I would say also in life, my our children have all launched. They all have jobs in the world.
Awesome.
They are all very successful. I
Awesome.
think we are really proud of them. We're a very close family.
Yeah. Congratulations,
even
Dad. Good
still,
job.
yeah, still, even though they don't live at home, we miss them terribly.
Yeah.
And we have been together for over 35 years.
Wonderful. That's great. Congratulations.
So
Yeah.
yeah.
So, do you both still engage in other relationships?
I think off and on we have more so me. I've been sort of seeing the same guy, different guy that then is in the memoir. But I've been seeing the same guy for about 8 years.
Oh wow.
So and again, it's sort of like he's not partnered himself. He was when we got together. He's not partnered now, but he's also, he's not somebody who's looking for marriage.
Okay.
He's very set. He's very set in the life he's created for himself. He likes the life he's created for himself as an independent person.
Mm-hmm.
And he wants companionship.
Mm-hmm. Nice. Nice. And does your spouse know him and get along with him well? And
Yeah, yeah.
okay.
She's met him a couple times.
Okay.
We don't really hang out together, like the
Mm-hmm.
three of us or anything like that.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean, she likes him a lot.
Okay, that's awesome. So this is very different. Like I'm a therapist by trade, and I
Uh huh.
have worked with men actually who have been in a throuple, um,
Yeah.
which is very different. So it's a whole different ball game.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess in my mind, I was trying to see what the differences would be between that type of relationship and what you have been doing. And I actually think what you're doing is probably a little easier.
Yeah. No, thruples are. I as a therapist also work with people in thruples, and again, the there aren't set rules and routines to guide them how to manage their relationships, and there's a lot of mononormativity and heteronormativity, the sort
Yeah,
of these set ways that we're given about how relationships are supposed to look, that we have to kind of disentangle
yeah,
ourselves from, to be able to see, oh, what are the possibilities between the three of us.
yeah, yeah,
I think they're really cool. I actually love working with my folks in thruples. I think it's dynamic and interesting and challenges conventions, and yeah,
yeah.
especially I think for bisexual folks, because they can be in a relationship with both a man and woman.
Yeah, it's definitely different. It's challenges. I think you mentioned before, like we're all kind of forced into this heteronormative container, as far as relationships goes, and even if like a queer relationship
Yep.
where you're monogamous with each other, you still encounter all of those heteronormative ideologies and
Yep.
modes of being and so I mean it's there, and you're almost challenging yourself every day, initially anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so this is great. So your memoir is called "The Maps They Gave Us: One Marriage Reimagined."
Yep.
And where would our listeners go to if they wanted to read your book? Where would they go to get it?
Yeah, so you can just plug it in and get it from Black Lawrence Press directly from the publisher. It is a small independent publisher, so it's always great to patronize them. The easiest way too is you can get it from my website, which is waynescottwrites.com, and that'll take you also to the back to the independent publisher, and you can buy it from them. So yeah.
Okay. Awesome. All right. So at waynescottwrites.com or at Black Lawrence Press.
Yep.
Right from the publisher. All right. So, Wayne, do you have advice for our listeners who, are, considering this and want to talk to their current partners about a different perspective on their relationship?
Yeah, I think it definitely helps to have a relationship therapist who is affirmative, of these kinds of arrangements, who can kind of help to sort of like facilitate the conversations, because they can be kind of loaded conversations, loaded with a lot of emotion. I think one lesson learned for me is that it takes time. It takes time and patience to work out an arrangement, and you have to kind of shut out a lot of the voices of judgment that come from other people about what you're trying to do, because people are frightened by. I think many people in monogamous arrangements are frightened by this option, because they, like us, were not allowed to have the conversations when they first got together about what do we want our relationship to look like. There's not a lot of open conversation about what would work for you, monogamy, non-monogamy. So to have patience with the process, to know that it takes time to resort and re-become. Yeah, that's so important, to keep the lines of communication open, keep talking, keep processing. And it probably helped a great deal that you're a therapist yourself and accustomed to processing everything. So very, very familiar with therapist offices. So that is awesome. All right. So we will look for The Maps They Gave Us, One Marriage Reimagined by Wayne Scott. And Wayne, do you have any parting words for our listeners today? I think the main thing I would say is, because I think you have a lot of LGBTQ community who follow you.
Yes.
And so I think we all really need to hang on to each other and be there for each other during this difficult, dark period that we are finding ourselves in right now. And we need to be especially attentive to our trans siblings. Because for whatever nasty reason, they are getting targeted like nobody's business right now.
Yes. It's a smokescreen.
It is. Yeah. It is, but it's unfair and it's damaging, and we got to look out for them. Yep. We got to look out for them and look out for each other. Yep,
definitely. Those are great words of advice. Couldn't agree more. So, Wayne, it has been a pleasure to talk with you.
Thank you, Anita.
Yeah, thanks for being on the show. And that is all the time we have for today. So I am Anita Kelly, and thanks for joining Let's Talk About Books, baby. And until next time, may your journey be lighthearted, peace be plenty, and be safe, folks.